of Agriculture, and they're going to give us a little presentation. They'll be happy to answer your questions or engage in discussion with you. But I'll give you the floor.
Can we take a break for a few minutes while I get this set up?
And let me remind everybody, just like the meeting we had with Ken Altman, let's all be business-like, let's be professional, and let's be courteous. Okay, I know this Newcastle thing is a serious issue for a lot of the folks up here, so let's not let our emotions cloud our words.
Yeah, as a bit of background, we were not contacted by them, but we went to them because we knew that there was a lot of interest in the area about this matter, and so we invited them. They were reluctant to come out at first, but we talked somebody into it. I don't know who it was, but they finally said, "Okay, we'll come out," so that's where we stand. How much time do you think you're going to need? You ready now? Okay. Let me get out of your way. So you want to get up here? You don't have to look at my face. John, you might want to sit out here so you can look at
Denise, do you want one?
Okay.
Oops. It's about the development.
Oh,
Take
it's
it.
okay. It's
Oh.
okay. I'll get it on the way out. I'll just end up using it.
Yeah, it's easy. Hey, Ryan, would you do it right arrow in advance?
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Enter.
I want to thank John and the group here. I'm an impressive group with good discussions. How often do you folks meet? Once a month. Once a month? Very good. That's good. Really appreciated the law enforcement, their comments. I live on a ranch that's been in our family for 100 years, as of 2012, and we're facing marijuana growers up there in the foothills all the time. Probably in the last 5 years, we've had 3 or 4 big busts. Fortunately, nobody yet on our ranch, but on all of our neighbors. It's just a real pain in the butt. The mess that they leave is probably worse than anything else. So, anyway, I sympathize with you on that. Anyway, my name's Raglm Newcastle. I'm a veterinarian with the California Department of Food and Ag. Again, I'm a native Californian. I'm a 5th generation actually born in California, so my family's been here a long, long time, and proud of it, but happy to be down here. I actually lived in Chino back in the late 70s and early 80s when all the dairies were still there in Chino, and I used to drive out through this country to get out to Hammett and San Jacinto when there were some of the dairies still out there. So it's good to be back home. My God, I don't even recognize the area with all the building that's gone on here. Holy smokes, and I can see your concerns with that. I mean, it just seems to be what's happening everywhere in California. Well, John invited us to come and share a little bit about what's going on with this exotic Newcastle, or virulent Newcastle as we call it today, disease outbreak. And this is a very traumatic situation for everybody. Virulent Newcastle is a highly infectious virus of birds, primarily poultry. The OIE, or it's the World Animal Health Organization is the actual English translation, but it's OIE is a French. Their headquarters are in France, so they named it. They consider this to be one of the most significant poultry diseases around the world because of how devastating it can be. States like the United States, we normally do not have virulent Newcastle here in the United States, so we consider it a foreign animal disease, and which immediately when we diagnose any foreign animal disease in the United States, it triggers a definite prescribed set of responses, and most of those are joint responses between the United States Department of Agriculture and the various state departments of agriculture, in this case California. When we first diagnosed virulent Newcastle in Los Angeles County in May of last year, the first thing we had to do was to notify USDA, and then as soon as we also had to notify the OIE that we had Raglm Newcastle now in the United States. As a result of that, just to show you the global significance, 57 countries around the world have taken some kind of import restrictions on poultry coming out of California and out of the United States. So there's other countries. This is more than just involving us. This is a big picture issue. Tremendously high morbidity and mortality in chickens. We've seen flocks that almost 100% of the birds are dying immediately once they're infected. There's no cure for it, and unfortunately, we do not have a vaccine that works. I wish we did. There are vaccines available. They do lessen the symptoms, and most of the commercial flocks around here, the big egg layers, they vaccinate their flocks heavily. We have seen in the 10 flocks that have been, of the big flocks that have become infected around here, we have seen a reduction in mortality. They have not been as, it's not been as lethal, but the birds are still shedding the virus, and that's our concern, is that even though the birds are vaccinated, they still shed the virus. And the good thing is, this is not a zoonotic disease. Zoonotic diseases are diseases like we hear about, like Ebola, something like that can go from animals to people. Brucellosis or tuberculosis in cattle can go from animals to people. Avian influenza, bird flu, can mutate and go to people. Virulent Newcastle only affects birds. Occasionally, some of our workers who are right around the birds and stuff, where we're dealing with these highly infected flocks, they might get a mild conjunctivitis, pink eye for a day or two, but that's the most we see. So there's absolutely no threat to any of us from the disease as far as a human health standpoint. This is strictly a bird welfare issue, and the fact that it kills these birds, and we don't want to see that happen. Again, it's primarily a disease of poultry. More than 250 avian species can be affected. Chickens are the big concern here, and our really big concern here in Southern California, and where this disease started, was in what we call exhibition birds, or basically the fighting chickens.
Okay. I am.
Somebody's.
Uh-oh, Ryan, what did we do? What did I read?
Well, I don't know how much power I have.
Does it extend to parrots and that kind of? Pardon? Does it extend to parrots and canaries and all birds, or just? Virtually all birds are susceptible. Primarily the gallinaceous birds. Okay. No problem. The chicken and poultry species are the most sensitive, absolutely, and they're our biggest concern. We've had 2 previous outbreaks of this disease in Southern California back in the early 70s. Had a pretty major outbreak, went on for almost 2 years, and then probably a lot of you, were any of you around that lived here in the area in 02, 03? Okay. We had a fairly major outbreak in that, and you can see when you start to look at the dollars that cost, that outbreak nearly wiped out all of the poultry, commercial poultry businesses here in Southern California. So far in this one, and I'm really concerned. I think we have really worked hard with our commercial industry to step up their biosecurity. We've only had 10 commercial premises become affected thus far, and we're hoping to keep it that way. Because like the deputy said, if we lose all of the egg production in Southern California, the price of your eggs will go up. California is a net importer of poultry products. We import more poultry products in the state than we produce here, especially eggs. There we go, we're going. Okay, I said that this thing was first diagnosed in in May of last year, May 16th to be exact. Some birds were in Los Angeles, were presented to a veterinary clinic over there, and the veterinarian was sharp enough that he recognized that this could be something bad.
And so we called up, and we instructed them on how to get the samples, get them to the lab. Our sampling techniques, and if you can tell, this is actually a bird's mouth here. We just, we open the mouth and we insert basically a long stem Q-tip. And we get a swab of the back of their throat, what we call an oral pharyngeal swab. We put that in some media, it goes up to the lab, and they run a PCR on it looking for the virus. And so that's as simple as the test is, swabbing the birds. It's not painful to the birds, it's quick, easy. So as soon as we diagnosed the disease, again, we got USDA involved. We established what we call an incident management team or an incident command structure, and I know law enforcement uses those for emergencies. We do exactly the same thing in animal emergencies. And we developed a key strategy for this disease, and these are the three key components that I want to spend time talking about each one of them. First is outreach and education, to try to get the word out to the producers, educate them about what the disease is and how they can protect their own flocks and get through this. The second is to detect the virus wherever it may be here in Southern California, and it's in a lot more places than we originally thought because of some of the comments that you made about the spread. And the third is our overall goal is to protect California poultry, whether that's backyard poultry owners or commercial poultry owners. We want to protect California poultry. We're all in this together. So outreach and education. This was our first effort. How we have accomplished that, we've done a lot of in-person meetings like this, a lot of public service announcements, meeting with community leaders, videos on YouTube. CDFA has a pretty robust website. USDA has a website. A lot of conference calls with various players, communities, what have you, email lists and stuff, and social media as well. Social media is something that is relatively new. USDA is a little more advanced with their social media than we are. CDFA is fairly new to it, but we're trying to get into that arena as well. Individual contacts door-to-door has been kind of the heart of our outreach efforts. Door-to-door outreach has its problems. We get a lot of people that don't answer the door. We deal with a lot of vicious dogs, various things like that. It's made our job very, very difficult. But still, it's been a key part of our strategy, not only to get the word out, but to figure out who has birds and where those birds are, and so we can get those birds tested and figure out where the disease is. We've done early on in this, last summer and into the fall, we spent a lot of time going to churches to try to reach primarily the game fowl community, because we recognized that was a key part of this outbreak. Did a lot of outreach to a lot of parishes, and actually the parishes were in the various communities were extremely accepting and willing to have us come in and talk to their parishioners. A lot of feed store outreach. Feed stores are a great source of information for producers, and a great way for us to get information on, what products. Feed stores sell several pallets full of chicken feed every week. But pretty good idea. There's probably a lot of birds in that area, and maybe we ought to do some testing, see what we can find. Unfortunately, feed stores can also be a big conduit of spreading the disease. If you've got chickens that are infected and you go into the feed store and you've got chicken poop all over your feet, and your neighbor who doesn't have the disease yet comes walking in and he gets the chicken poop on his feet and takes it home, you have just managed to spread this virus all over creation. So in addition to them being a good source of information and a good source for us to disseminate information, just getting them to step up their biosecurity and to help all of you prevent the disease has been a real plus. And then we focused on community events. Again, early on, targeting a lot of the Mexican community rodeos and things like that to try to get the word out. Shows and fairs. We just, this last week, had folks for several days down at the San Diego County Fair. It had some very good response from people down there. Local government and town halls. We've done over 100 50 public meetings around the various counties, various boards and what have you. Meetings similar to this, and really want to thank John for inviting us. News information, we have put a lot of information out to the media. Unfortunately, the media only picks up what the media wants to do. If they don't see, if the story they don't think is of interest, it doesn't get published. And so we've had a whole lot of media announcements over the year that we've been at this.
I have a question about that. Well, since you have such a big budget, why not pay for full page ads and pay to get the information out there instead of just counting on?
Let's let them finish their presentation.
Yeah,
There'll be time for question
I'll
and
probably
answer.
answer a lot of your questions before we get done. We've done a lot of flyers, and please help yourself to the flyers here. Most of these have been educational type pieces. A lot of them are in Spanish on one side, English on the other, to try to get the information out about this. So that's pretty much a good summary of our first part of our strategy, which is outreach. The second part deals with eliminating the virus. We've got to get this virus eliminated so that all the poultry owners here in Southern California and us too can get back to a normal life.
Yeah.
The central part of California's authority to deal with a disease like this centers on the state veterinarian and the quarantine authority that they have. It's the California Food and Agricultural Code, Section 9562, and it gives the veterinarian has very, very broad authorities when we suspect disease or something that may be significant to agriculture, to people, to the food supply, whatever. My boss has real broad authorities on that. And that's where our quarantine authorities and everything else come from that. Initially, we were just quarantining individual premises. Back in last summer, we started issuing some area quarantines. I know we had part of Ontario quarantined for a while. I think, let's see, we had Fontana, some very small regional quarantines. But as the disease continued to grow, in February of this year, Dr. Jones issued a regional quarantine that covers all of Los Angeles County, the western portion of San Bede County, and the western portion of Riverside County. And we'll come back to this map and we'll look at some of where the disease is in there. The area quarantine requires that people do several things. Number one, for our commercial folks, they report any disease or any unexplained changes in their production. If they see a decrease in egg production, they're supposed to report that to us. They do a lot of diagnostic testing. All of the commercial egg layers in that quarantine region are sampling their flocks twice a week and submitting those samples to the CAFS lab. The backyards, we require everybody is supposed to be confining their poultry. There's not supposed to be any birds running loose anywhere in that area at this point in time. And no, again, this is more for the commercials, but no poultry or manure or anything like that can move off of the commercial farms or from one farm or like feed or anything like that without a permit. So we want to make sure, and as we talk a little bit more, we want to make sure that, all right, if the feed truck is, I don't know, let's just say you had a commercial or even a small backyard laying operation. We have some small backyard egg producers that are, as few as 100 birds that are actually commercial. I mean, they're in it for business. They have a permit to produce eggs. The last thing you want is for a truck to go onto somebody else's farm that has the disease and then transport that disease to your farm while they're unloading feed at your place, or take it from your place if you were infected back to the feed mill and then out to other places. So that's where by permitting this movement, we can make sure that all of the farms are doing the appropriate biosecurity, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that, and the feed mills are doing some biosecurity to prevent these kinds of spread. A lot of these lessons, a lot of these things we learned, y'all remember the big bird flu outbreak that happened back in the Midwest in 2015, was it, Ryan? I mean, I think we killed 50 million birds back there before we got our arms around that thing. And a lot of these lessons that while it's been basically the protocol that we're using to control this is identical to what we used with avian influenza. It's a standard protocol used around the world by the OIE, by the United States, by member nations to control animal diseases, especially highly contagious viral diseases like virulent influenza. So again, no movement of birds without a permit. We cancel all exhibitions, fairs, what have you, with poultry, and basically that is throughout the state. No live poultry. Are y'all, any of you familiar that we've got a lot of live bird markets? And when I talk about live bird markets, you can walk in, pick out your live chicken, and they'll slaughter it for you right there. Those kinds of markets, it's mainly for the ethnic market. Most of them are in LA. I think we've got 40 of them here in Southern California. We want to make sure that those places are a dead end, that if there's any chance that a bird came into that carrying the disease, that no birds can leave those facilities alive. They have to all be killed. And then just enhanced biosecurity for not only the commercial businesses, but for our feed stores and everything else that I've mentioned. Pardon, so that was kind of an overview of that. Diagnosis and surveillance have been a key to figuring out and finding out where the disease is. Once we know it's in an area, then we can step up our surveillance. We can step up the depopulation of the infected flocks. Whatever it is taking to get ahead and get our arms around this disease. The challenge down here in Southern California has been just finding where the sick birds are and finding the disease. Number one, getting access to prems, to sample birds and stuff. A lot of people aren't home. A lot of people just don't answer their door. We have encountered birds housed in all kinds of unique situations that you wouldn't normally think was where chickens would be housed. But yeah, we found them there. And then just catching the birds in some cases, because a lot of these communities we've had, it seems like the whole community is one big chicken flock because they're all running out in the streets. So it has been an interesting experience. We capture a tremendous amount of data from all the testing we're doing, from the surveys that we're doing, the questionnaires that we're getting out to folks. Anyway, the disease originated here in the Los Angeles area. It then popped up out of the Muskoy, Fontana, Highland areas, Chino, Ontario. We've had it's been in Monte. We had one clear over here in Ventura County that we stamped out very early on. We've had positives in several places up there in the high desert already. Right now, our hotspots, and I'll come back to this, our hotspots are still Muskoy, the whole Miraloma area, Paris, and is this Paris down there? Anyway, yeah, Miraloma there. I actually, when I lived down here, like I said, it's 40 years ago now, I took flying lessons at the Chino Airport back when it was still a quiet little airport. And we would come out to Lake Matthews and practice our stalls and spins over Lake Matthews because there was nobody lived out here back then. And plus over the lake, you didn't have to worry. If you went in, you were just going to splash in the water. Semi-urban poultry, which is what we're encountering, has been a real challenge. And it provides a unique circumstance for the virus to survive, because we've got areas where we'll have lots of backyard poultry in close proximity to each other. A lot of these places, the birds are flying freely around, what have you, and so the whole area literally becomes contaminated with virus. Viruses can only live and multiply when they're inside a host. This virus, if it's on the ground, it will survive And if it gets into another host, it can start multiplying, but eventually it will die there on the ground. And the research that's been done looks like about 120 days with no host, nothing to do, and the virus is cooked, if you will. It's going for it. But in these urban areas that we're dealing with down here, once we find one, and especially this is an area, if you look at all these backyards and the amount of poultry that is housed in all of those, even if we found half of those and missed the other half, the opportunity for that virus to multiply and to infect other birds, for people in that area to spread it to other areas, just becomes, it's incredible. And so that has been what, as we've gone through this thing and we've learned and we have adapted to what we need to be doing to control this, that we have gone to some of our more aggressive euthanasia, where not only do we take out the affected premises, but we'll take out all the neighboring premises around it, because those birds likely have been exposed, and if we leave them, they will then become sources of more virus and contaminate more neighbors, and this thing will just continue to go on and on. Our main method to stop this virus is euthanasia of the birds, as I think everybody's aware. Unfortunately, that's the only tool we have in our toolbox right now. I will say that we only use humane methods of euthanasia that have been approved by the American Veterinary Medical Association. The American Veterinary Medical Association has a list of approved euthanasia methods for all species, basically, or all domesticated species. And the main way that we use is with CO2 gas, either in a container, like a trash can for a few birds, or we actually have, they're called mobile atmospheric killing chambers. Doesn't sound very nice, but this whole stainless steel enclosure is charged with CO2 gas. It's got a flapper window. We can put the birds in there. They're unconscious within just a matter of seconds. And the CO2 is, like I say, it is an acceptable way, an acceptable means of euthanasia. Occasionally, on some of these, and I mentioned that we have a lot of loose birds on some of these facilities that we deal with, or birds get loose as we're trying to do this, to carry out what we need to do. We employ the United States Department of Agriculture's Wildlife Services folks, and they have teams who are sharpshooters. They're used to taking out problem species around airports, things like that. They come and they work with us. They have pellet guns, and they will, have to euthanize some of the loose birds that way in order to get the job done. And the third part of our strategy has been to protect the poultry here in California, to try to get this thing stopped before it causes any more heartburn and heartache for the backyard poultry producers and the small egg layers, small egg producers, and we're really fortunate. We've got a lot of good niche markets here in California that help small agriculture. Even though California is known for its mammoth agriculture, I love the fact that we've still got opportunities for small-scale farmers, the person who's got a couple hundred layers or something like that. And so we're as concerned about keeping them in business as we are the big folks. We've got a whole team, and the team is about 4 times this big now, that does nothing but work with producers on biosecurity, on auditing their biosecurity, making sure that the feed mills are doing their biosecurity, and what have you. One of the unique challenges here in Southern California is we have commercial poultry in very, very close proximity to highly dense backyard poultry. This is a commercial poultry facility right here. They have about 40,000 layers. Less than 600 feet away, we have this facility here that was full of backyard chickens. So the challenge is really tough. It's tough if the backyard guys get infected, it's going to be tough for this guy to not get infected. In this case, if this guy gets infected, it's going to be almost impossible with that much virus in the area to not have it spill over into the backyards too. So that's why we're concerned about both. And just here's another similar example. This was a commercial operation with about 70,000 layers. They became infected, and this facility was right there. So we've really been focusing a lot, in addition to trying to work with our small backyard folks and educate them, working with the large producers. And as I said, the area quarantine has required that all the large producers sample their birds twice a week, all the birds on their flock or operation. They also have all had to put together what we call a biosecurity plan, or a secure food supply plan, that has a spelled out set of requirements that they have to follow in order to be able to continue to ship product. And the idea is we're trying to minimize the chance that anything that they would do would cause them to get infected, because we want to keep product going to you, the consumers. And so a couple of things is just to have security fencing around their facilities, have a truck wash, a single entrance where all the entry and exit from the farm, and trucks can be disinfected as they come on and go off the farm. Now, certainly things like that, and it's just a picture of cleaning a truck, things like that are pretty expensive for the backyard farmers. They're going to have a hard time seeing in the car every time they drive in and out of the driveway and stuff. But on a bigger farm, it's something that they have to do. They've got a lot bigger investment, and they've got to protect it. Another part of our secure food supply plans, and these are just some maps that we took from some of the plans here in the area. We require them to draw a complete map of their facility, where their employees park, where the feed trucks enter and not. Their employees are required to wear PPE at work. So if you see people on a regular chicken ranch that are in white suits, that's because it's part of their requirement while this outbreak is going on. Because the last thing we want is the workers to go home, become infected, or become contaminated, and bring that virus back to the poultry facility, or the vice versa. We don't want to get taken, if this poultry facility became infected, and we had some commercial folks that have become infected, we don't want the workers taking it home to their chickens. We're trying to do everything we can to stop the spread of this disease so we can all get back to a normal life. These are some maps that we produced just to kind of help monitor what we're doing. They're called heat maps, and the darker the center, the more blue it is. It means the more disease that's been in that area. Compton was one of the real early hot spots that we had, as was Musco area out here. Miraloma and Paris have both come later, and some of these others were maybe just one or two positives there. But we do a lot of number crunching, just constantly looking at trying to establish patterns or figure out, is there patterns with how this disease is moving? Are there things that we could do different to stop this disease from moving? Basically, like I said, we want to get out of here as fast as we can, get out of your hair, get out of your neighbor's hair, and get back to a normal life, and let everybody get back to raising their birds in a healthy manner. Just some statistics as of this week. We've got about 310 responders on site. About half of those are USDA folks, half of them are CDFA folks. So we've got a lot of people from all over the United States here helping us out with this. We have visited 153,000 premises throughout the LA Basin in those various areas I showed you just a minute ago. We've got 5,700 premises that we've been issued individual quarantines to. We currently have 19, what we call infected zones, 19 spots, or the red spots that you saw on the map, where we have actually diagnosed the disease. We've got mandatory twice-a-week testing for all the commercial folks. To date, we've had over 6,000 laboratory submissions. And when we take our samples, we actually we have a tube of a special media that keeps the virus growing so we can get it to the lab. We'll do 5 chickens and put those 5 swabs in the tube so that it cuts down the cost. About $50 a sample for the cost to process these on a PCR. PCR is an incredible tool, and the law enforcement uses it. It actually measures DNA, is what it looks at. Fantastic technology, but it's not cheap. So, to date, we've had 470 infected premises throughout the basin here. 85% of those have been chickens. Not surprised, I told you from the get-go, that's what this disease likes. It likes chickens. But we've had pigeons, we've had ducks, turkeys. I'm trying to think what else we have. That's the main elements. We've euthanized birds on over 1,900 premises so far. 1.2 million birds have given their life for this disease control so far. 1.1 million of those have been on the poultry farms, so do the math, that means we've killed about 100,000 backyard chickens. And I'll tell you that as veterinarians, Ryan and I take an oath to alleviate animal suffering and prevent animal disease and what have you, and having to kill that many birds does not come easy for us either. It's not something we enjoy doing. If we didn't believe in the bigger picture here and that what can be gained by getting this disease under control, it would be very hard for us to do this as well. One of the things that we are doing is, as we depopulate premises, especially the ones that are positive, we want to make sure that those folks don't go back and restock, because remember I said that this virus needs at least 120 days to die out without a host. And so we're doing what we call fallow checks. We're going back and revisiting all of those 1,900, whatever the number was, premises that we've euthanized birds on. We're going back and visiting those every 20 days to make sure they have not restocked with any birds. We've had a few people that forgot and did, and we depopulated their second crop of birds, and they don't get paid for that group. That was their mistake. So anyway, we're trying everything that we know how to try to get this disease under control. Just a couple of again, this thing started in May of last year. On May 13th, a backyard poultry producer in LA County brought some birds to the veterinary clinic. Those all died. And on May 17th, we got back that D&D was confirmed, and we set up our incident command post with USDA. December 14th was the day we got the first commercial positive. It was actually a poultry facility, a pullet ranch right up here in your area. We still aren't quite sure how that individual got, because he has good biosecurity, or they did. They were doing a good job, and so that one really shocked us when they got contaminated. And then on February 27th was when our state veterinarian issued that regional quarantine that I showed you. I think there's hope. If you look at this is the number of positive premises that we've had per week, starting a year ago. We were doing pretty good. We thought maybe we were doing real good there last fall, and in November, December, we got our butts kicked. The cool weather came in. We had the disease had spread to other areas that we had not found yet. Paris was one of those, and it just exploded. Once we found the first case in some of these neighborhoods and got to testing more and more birds, the disease was very, very widely spread, and it's taken us almost 6 months to get that back under control. We now have gone 3 weeks in a row with only 1 positive case, and this last week we have had none. So we're cautiously optimistic that maybe by the aggressive stance that we have taken in depopulating whole areas, like I said, to try to eliminate the virus, eliminate all the exposed birds, eliminate the hosts in an area, we're cautiously optimistic that we're making progress. Do I believe we found all the disease here in Southern California? Probably not. There have been so many birds moved out of some of these communities illegally against the quarantine. We can't catch them all. We don't know about all of them. I'd be naive to think that the disease has not spread beyond Southern California. I just hope it hasn't. I certainly don't want to see it up in my district, up in Tulare, because we've got all kinds of large commercial producers up there, in addition to a lot of backyard producers as well. So I am hopeful that we're making some progress here, and that progress has come at a terrible cost to a lot of backyard folks. I appreciate that. It's come at a terrible cost emotionally to all of us involved, but I have to believe that we're doing the right thing, and we're going to get this disease under control, and we're going to get you all back to a normal, you and your neighbors who have chickens, get them back to a normal life. So anyway, with that, John, I would entertain questions.
Okay, well,
And Dr. Clark is available too.
go ahead, Dan.
Thank you both for coming, number one, and nobody will fight out here. But I wrote a bunch of questions because I've been involved with fever here for the last two, so it's not free for us. Didn't have chickens this time. However, my biggest question being a nurse and being involved in disease control and is that when you take the samples and you put 5 in the bag, how do you monitor the chain of custody of that sample? And do you tag it? Like when we go for our blood labs, for instance, each tube will have a tag on it. We have a copy of that code. We take that home with our records. Is the homeowner given a sticky, which is attached, the same one attached to each one of the samples inside that bag, so each 5. So it would take, I don't know how many days. So how do they know if it's positive? How do they know it's their samples is positive?
We take meticulous care, and every sample tube has a barcode on it, and that barcode, the sticker, a matching sticker to the one that's on there, it's attached to the lab sheet, the lab submission form. It has the owner's name, the premises number, their address, all of that.
And does the owner get a copy of that?
No, we've not done that.
Maybe that would be a good idea for people
I
saying,
will take that under consideration. Thank you.
I wasn't aware that my birds were even positive. No one told me. And that's what I've heard from a lot of people.
All right.
I've been in the feed business for a lot of times, just on a small basis, but that really bothers me.
Okay.
But one thing that CDFA sorely missed was in Anaheim about 3 months ago was the massive 7,000 young people that were at a conference for FFA and for young folks that were going into agriculture. You may have been there. And across from a friend of mine who had a booth there was CDFA. 2 young girls, only been with CDFA for 2 months. There was not one anywhere in that facility, flyer, poster, or otherwise, warning people throughout the state and whatever region they came from of this disease and getting them to keep their eyes open. Why did they not take that golden opportunity to spread something when half the time we didn't know here? Back in the 2002, we had red tags on our gate, red ribbons, which meant don't come in without calling. And everybody had a red tag, and it stopped. Maybe that's where the red book came from. Maybe that's where the red book of 2015 came from. Maybe that's where it's got its name, I don't know. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, and good comment about the FFA. I was not
That
aware
was
of
a
this
huge
convention,
yes.
and because I've got nieces who've been in FFA and done very well.
And I'm a great
I
FFA
love
supporter.
It's difficult when you get in the thick of something like this to know and always catch all of the opportunities that are presented.
I don't think we were as well thought out this year as we were in 2002-03.
Right.
I really don't. We had a very, very late start.
I can tell you the difference is in 2002, 2003, we had as many as 1,500 people on site. We're at 310 today, and that's the biggest we've been.
But everybody knew. Everybody knew. It was on the radio, it was on everything, nobody could choose, no matter if it was the rock station or the classical station.
And again,
On the radio.
that is, I will say, we have done an incredible amount of, put together an incredible amount of outreach material. And the news, I mean, the news media has to want to pick it up. They have to see something in it for them. And in the ensuing 15 or so years, I think we've seen enough change in our news media that things that they would have thought were newsworthy previously aren't today. That's the only thing I can.
Well, then back to my question about why not just pay for ads? Why not put
Billboard, something.
why not put a mailer in everybody's utility bills? Make sure people know.
We're actually looking into the
Now?
mailers thing. That is I think that's being worked on right now. Isn't it right? Yes, because we heard that. We heard somebody.
Now you're doing that?
We're working on that, and again, things have changed since 2003. For instance, how many of you people pay your bills online?
That's not the point.
But I still get a paper bill in the mail.
I've been using a mailer, though it seems like a good idea on the outside.
How about a
The
billboard?
water bill, the water bill.
Again, we've had all sorts of ideas. We're working on some. We can always do a better job in trying to get out the word. We admit that.
Yeah.
So any ideas, we'd be welcome, folks, if you could offer some ideas.
I
to
think
get the
people
word
have
out.
been offering ideas, and they've been no one has taken heed to anything. And when did you notice this? Last May of 2018?
Yeah, I didn't hear about it until
February?
no. I think I
March?
heard
April?
around January, and I didn't hear it from you guys. I heard it from the next door app from my neighbors talking about it. You know, I mean, and I was here in 2002, 2003, and knew all about Newcastles. And I would have picked that up if I'd even heard the word. So why did it go on for 8 months or 7 months before I even heard about it?
Yeah, we're trying to kind of make up for lost time here. And we realized that perhaps with that spike that we had in the infection rate, that was a cause of maybe not getting the word out to some of the outside counties. Back then, it was kind of up in San Bernardino in Los Angeles. But now that it's spread kind of down in the Riverside, we realized that we could have done a better job.
Maybe have you told Orange County, like near Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm, just in case they might get infected over there, or they don't even know either?
We have a representative embedded with our incident management, the incident management team, who is a representative of the governor's Cal OES. And she represents the whole LA County basin and has made all of the emergency responders. And Ryan and I have actually done presentations to groups of the emergency responders. So all of the counties here in the basin have been well versed, and our PIOs have met with virtually all of the county supervisors and a lot of the different communities. So again,
That wasn't
it's
really
a
my
different-
question. That really wasn't really my question, because if this is so deadly and it's all over Southern California, why are you only skipping around? Why is Orange County just kind of grayed out a little bit? I mean, the Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm, they have chickens and ducks and everything flying all over the place.
We have not, the region Orange County did not get quarantined because we've had numerous sick bird calls from Orange County, and we investigate any call that comes in on our sick bird hotline. They're all investigated. We have found no evidence of disease. Now, I'm not saying it's not there, but we have not been able to find disease in Orange County. But we have gotten the word out to the elected officials in Orange County.
Well, I have friends in Orange County and haven't even heard anything. When I tell them about it, they're shocked that this is going on right now.
Can you spend a couple minutes and talk about your onboarding procedures, because it seems like your workers aren't really well trained. They're violating OSHA protocols, which are very basic. Can you kind of talk about that, maybe lapse in their own biosecurity?
We have really beefed that up in the last, since March.
What would you say the training process would
Part
be?
of what happened was last fall, and as you guys remember, early this year, we had a federal government shutdown. So we basically lost almost all of our support from USDA for several months there. And so that was when we had to onboard a whole lot of local folks to help even try to keep the thing going. And we did not do as good a job onboarding them as we have. We have done training all along, but I sat in on, we had a new group of people like Ryan from the USDA, they rotate in here for a 3-week deployment.
Right.
Whether they have been here before or not, they have to sit through a day's training on the onboarding with everything that we've learned since they were here last.
Right.
I sat through a good chunk of that yesterday just to be updated on what we're telling our folks.
Right.
And holy smokes, we have stepped up
Right.
to answer your question, we have stepped up our game.
Yeah,
Yes,
my
we
question
did not
wasn't
do a good
necessarily
job.
my question wasn't necessarily directed to you guys, more the management staff. I totally expect you guys to go through training. My question was more directed to the people that are showing up to our houses. What's the
Yes.
background check process? How do we know these people are safe? I mean, sometimes they're not
Yeah,
identifying
no,
themselves.
no,
That was what I was getting
I'm
at.
referring,
Okay.
that was what I was talking to was,
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Okay.
what we have done now is incorporates everybody. And not only that, but is it tomorrow that we're having the communications class for all of our terms?
Right.
All of our term employees are coming in for a 2-hour communication class just to address some of the issues. And we have heard that. We've heard that from folks like you, and that's why we have read that.
And they pass
Thank you.
drug tests, so when they give us, information, we can run a background check if we would like to, and they'd be safe, since they're federal employees.
All of the
What level
USDA,
of-
all of the USDA employees the USDA does background checks, yes. CDFA does not on our temporary seasonal agricultural employees. And that is because most of the folks under that category are hired for like 6 months a year to do fruit inspections, things like that.
So
And
there's-
those are the
there's-
ones that are coming to our homes.
But there's
Yeah,
no
right.
drug screening, there's no background check, they're literally, did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful.
No, we do, the state of California does not do routine drug screenings on new employees, on any new employees, period.
So what's the onboarding requirements for these personnel?
Now, I'm not defending that, take that up with
No,
your elected
we don't
officials.
blame, we're not asking
I don't
you
agree
to,
with it.
we need to know that because these are the people that are coming onto our property,
Yeah.
right?
And I really do appreciate your comment, and like I said, we have heard that previously, and that's why we have beefed up what we're doing on not only our onboarding, but our ongoing training.
Right.
To try to get people more.
Because that
To be
comment goes,
better-
right,
better
because that comment goes
equipped
more
with
on
law
law enforcement too, because we actually want law enforcement to be present when these guys are coming on our property, because we suspected that they might not have onboarding procedures that would be, appropriate of a Walmart even. Kmart's out of business.
Probably a little bit of that.
Are you sure? Because I think they make you pass a piss test for Walmart. So,
Actually, one of our people who has done most of our onboarding training is a former Walmart employee.
Please tell me the
He's
good
an
news.
outstanding human resources individual. He really has a good message, especially for the young people. I don't know if any of you have worked with younger employees. They're a challenge.
Absolutely.
A lot of these folks that are working for us have not had a lot of jobs previously, and we're hoping that we can instill some work ethic in them and things like that. And we appreciate your patience for sure. As a taxpayer, it would upset me as well to have somebody like that who didn't know what they were doing coming to my door. So I do appreciate it. And we have heard that and we have addressed it. So, yes, ma'am.
So I understand the seriousness of the virus, and I understand that you're doing what you think is the best thing to get it under control. I think what a lot of people are having trouble with is the way that that's being carried out, because people come to your door and demand to be let in to look around. They will not identify themselves. If people give them any resistance at all, they bully and they intimidate.
First of all, everyone that works for us should have an ID.
They turn it around and will not show it to you.
They should be showing
They
you
will
their
not.
ID.
They won't.
If you're the owner of the birds or the property, the person we actually have business with, we will show you our ID.
They're
If you're
not.
not, we don't have business with you, so we're not required to show our ID.
Okay, so you are showing it to the homeowners when they request it?
Yes.
Okay. Also, we've seen some pretty bad biosecurity. For instance, there was a home in Miraloma where a lady had consented to have her 7 little chickens killed, but she had supporters there and protesters that were respectful. But anyway, they didn't come on that day, and they made her wait about 19 more days before they finally showed up. They showed up with 3 or 4 CHP officers who proceeded to walk around the property in their regular clothes. They didn't have booties on even. They didn't spray their shoes off or anything, and then they went up the street about 3/4 of a mile and did the same thing at the next house. So if you're saying that people moving birds is what's causing the spread, I would say that poor biosecurity techniques by the people who are trying to eradicate the virus are every bit as responsible for that.
I am not aware that the CHP has actually been, to my knowledge, they were not actually going on to where the birds are on these premises, because they should not be going any place where there's birds if they are not in full PPE, just like the rest of our folks. One thing we have done,
I have video.
We have
a lot of video.
We have heard complaints about the biosecurity from people like you, and for the last, how long's we had our biosecurity, six weeks now? For the last 6 weeks, we have had 2 biosecurity teams, 2 3-man biosecurity teams following, and they can't go with every team every day, but they have been going around with all of our teams double checking on the biosecurity. Because yes, no matter how many times you tell somebody, we all tend to take shortcuts. And that's not a good thing when we're dealing with a disease like this. And so because of hearing from folks like you that we have people out there who were not doing everything they should, we have brought an extra team of people on to double check and make sure that they are. So thank you. Yes, we have addressed that. That is good. Good information.
Excuse me, sir. I've had my hands up first, and I'm hoping you'll let me ask some questions. Because I know I'm the only brown person here, so maybe you don't notice me.
That's totally uncalled for.
It's totally uncalled for, but you know I have my hands up first, and everybody's been asking like 2 or 3 questions, and I'm actually very nice to you guys. So I'm going to sit back down, okay, so that way you don't think I'm aggressive. But here's the first question I have for you. I feel it's unfair that the poultry industry, the guys that has 40,000 chickens, only get paid a penny per chicken.
No, that's not true.
Okay, you got that recorded? Thank you. So you're saying that they only get a penny per chicken. I have evidence of that, and I'm going to be putting that out on my feed.
The poultry, if you will let me explain, the
Yes, sir.
price of the poultry is determined by a fair market calculator that the United States Department of Agriculture uses. And they use the same one all across the country to be fair. Now, spent hens that are at the end of their laying cycle, or they've been molted a couple of times so they're truly ready to be disposed of, those might be only worth a penny. But nice broiler chickens, we're paying $14, $15 a piece for.
To the poultry industry.
To everybody.
To everybody. Okay, so that's good. Then I'm gonna contact this guy, get his invoice, and I'm gonna call him a liar, or I'm gonna present it to you.
No, please, because
I want to, because that's one of the reasons why I'm here. Because and here's the other second thing, all right? You said that you go to the feed store to buy your chicken feed, and you're picking up the food from your house to the feed store, right? I totally agree with what you're saying there. So what you're saying is that it'll take 120 days for that poop to disappear, and we'll be free of disease, right?
if it's been out in the sun and
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't, when you kill the chickens, not also remove the poop from the property at the same time? Because well, this is what I'm saying is, when you remove the chicken, right, shouldn't you quarantine off the property, keep a homeowner on the property for 120 days? Because that's what I'm thinking, quarantine. Because right now, I got another pair of shoes, and I'm going north, because that's, as soon as July's over, my kid's out of summer school, I'm going north, but I don't want to be arrested, because I live in Riverside County, and I'm transporting my shoes. I got 3 pairs in the car. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what we need to do is we need to quarantine the whole Riverside County, don't allow anybody to leave for the next 120 days. That way, we keep it safe. Doesn't that make sense?
That's a great idea, but I don't think we can do it.
We have the National Guard, they're unemployed, most of those guys need jobs, all right? Here's my third question. No, I have a third question.
I would support that.
I totally support
I
it,
don't
that's
think
what I'm
that's gonna
saying.
happen.
Should we also close off the border? Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, they got millions of people coming through this summer that's coming off the property going into Orange
Right.
County that's infecting the property. I wish
Right
you would
there.
put his hand down while I'm talking, it makes me nervous, like I got beat up. You're next, partner, you're next, okay?
Millions of
I only
people
have
going
three
to those
questions.
places.
So what my point I'm just trying to say is, if we really have a disease, if we really have a quarantine issue, we need to get the National Guard out. We need to lock down the neighborhood. We need to burn the weed, so that way the voters will vote for no weed next time. We don't haul it away, we need to burn it. The chickens, same thing. While you're burning the weed, we throw the chickens in. Just go down the street, you hear beep, 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 beep. If it's somebody's phone going chick, 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 put it in the feeder, burn it. That's all I'm saying, right? Let's do it right. What I get upset about, oh, I'm a liar. Oh, I was running for politics, so I'm really not a liar, okay, I lost. Here's the third-party form, all right, for the people that don't have Social Security. All of a sudden, you guys come up with a third-party form. As long as you live in the state of California, you know, the Hollywood state, the Central state, the make-believe state, where it's a misdemeanor here, but once you cross to Arizona, you get arrested for a felony, right? Why? Did you know that when that person uses that form to get that money through somebody else's Social Security, did you know that it's a federal crime for them to utilize a Social Security when they're illegal to acquire money? Did you know that? We need to fix this. We need to confirm this so that way my people, and that's everybody, we the people, get it clear. And this lady started out beautifully. And started out beautifully when she said about procedure, due process. There's just no due process. You two sound like you just landed and your family being here in 1870. I love that. I mean, I really love that because when I was planting up and down 99 freeway, planting grass meant a lot of you folks. You know, that's one of my jealousy. That one day, 100 years from now. But anyway, so she's right there. She's got the book. If you take that, the rest of us probably won't be so upset. Because at least then we can have somebody to talk to instead of somebody, it's not a computer, it's a guy repeating the same thing to every one of us that calls him. Thank you for your time. All right?
Thank you for your comments. I truly wish, if I was king for a day, what you suggest is exactly how we should have stopped this.
Then join me and we go talk to Newsom. All right? Let's shut down Sacramento. We got a lieutenant here. He can take the county. Let's go do it.
Retiring.
Is he? No. We activated him in the National Guard. Everybody here, Joe. Thank you.
You run correct.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I think this problem's gonna be, or this area is gonna be one of your biggest problems. I think that Newcastle started here probably almost a year before you guys were aware of it.
Oh, I think so too.
My chickens died in May of 2016, all of them. I called animal control because it was the only person I knew to call. They did nothing about it. Definite classic sites in Newcastle. Within weeks of my chickens dying, there was bags of dead chickens everywhere in this area. I brought it up to CDFA at several meetings. Don't think anything's been done about it. You have so many people in this area. You're being recorded right now by a group of people who don't believe a damn word you have to say at all. They think that you're lying, the disease is made up, it was lab created, put the tinfoil on it.
That's not exactly true.
I'm talking.
I will say that, just to set the record straight, we have no helicopters in our budget, I guarantee you.
I'm sure.
I wish we did. It would make finding all those places that I pointed out to in those satellite images,
The
it would make it
numbers,
so
the
much
numbers
easier.
you put on the screen don't lie. If 1.1 million poultry farm chickens have been killed, because one of the biggest theories is this is a land grab to take our backyard chickens away so that we can't live in a rural area anymore, which is BS obviously, because 1.1 million of the chickens that were killed were poultry farms, commercial farms. I think the only way to do anything in this area is to kill every piece of poultry that's alive and keep going back to the people's houses and making sure that they don't have chickens. Because I can tell you on my street alone, when everybody's chickens have been killed, within weeks there was chickens right back on the same street. There's still dead chickens in the fields out here. There's still dead chickens in bags up here. See, nobody wants to spread that word. They're all worried about their own 7 pet chickens in their backyard, and you guys are the devil.
Please, our hotline, sick bird hotline, if you have information that'll help us identify where potentially positive premises or people that are having high death loss. Because one of the things we can do is if somebody's having high death loss, we sample those birds. If they come back negative for Newcastle, we can offer, and the state lab has a low cost necropsy, that's like what you call doing an autopsy on chickens, on animals. The lab will do a complete workup. If you had some birds in your backyard and you were concerned about them, right now the first thing we need to do is rule out Newcastle because we don't want to contaminate the lab and everybody else hauling dead chickens around. But if we can swab them and find out, no, it's not Newcastle, but you're still having a death loss, we will put you in touch with the right people to get a good necropsy, and they'll do cultures, they'll do all kinds of stuff to work up, okay, is it Merrick's disease, is it avian influenza? I'm not a poultry specialist, so I've exhausted my knowledge of poultry disease. But anyway, we can put you in touch with folks who will do that.
But like I said, I
And
bring
we
this
do that.
area up because it's been a hot zone the entire time.
So-
That little blob that's over this area has not changed in size or color.
How did you own birds without knowing about the testing facility in San Bernardino?
Say that again?
Did you not know there's a testing facility in San Bernardino?
No, I didn't.
You had Google?
A lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have Google. It's the 21st century. How is
Yeah,
someone saying I don't know anything?
We are very fortunate in the state of California. We have one of the best state-run animal diagnostic laboratory systems in the entire United States. Absolutely. We have the state of California is divided up into 4 animal health districts, CDFA, each district. Ontario, you folks are in Ontario district. I'm in charge of the Tulare district, which goes from Tehachapi up to Madera, I think. Then we've got a Modesto district, and then we've got Redding up in Northern California. Each of those 4 districts also has a state laboratory associated with it. And if the San Bernardino lab, they happen to be good poultry folks down here, very, very good at it. If the San B lab can't figure out what it is, they've got access to 3 other labs with really good pathologists who will figure it out. So.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Can we
And the reason I didn't know.
Can we take one more question and then we'll wrap this
I've got
thing up?
2, but they're real easy.
I need an easy.
Okay,
No,
you
you
guys
guys
have
have been great.
Is Southern California the only place in the United States that's now affected because of this?
And it wasn't taken seriously. Not
Right
years
now,
later, we still have
we have had incursions that have been traced to California. We had 1 infected flock in southern Utah and 1 in Flagstaff, Arizona. And we could not put together any epidemiologic, in other words, the owners we never could figure out where the birds came from, but the DNA of the virus matched the DNA of the virus that's circulating here in Southern California. So we knew somehow the disease got from the LA Basin here.
Somebody ignored the quarantine.
Fortunately, they found them and got it stamped out quick and are done.
Okay, second one's even
That disease is still
easier.
moving.
The second one's even easier.
Of
How
course.
long does it take
So
from when you send in your samples to get the results back from the lab?
24 hours. See, if we sample birds.
But you
today,
won't get the results.
If we sample,
No.
Wasn't worried about me because I don't have chickens.
We're saying one
Okay,
a
I'm
person.
worried, I'm concerned that if they take samples and it takes 3 weeks,
no.
you can ask,
Yeah, it's 24 hours if there
Okay.
isn't a backlog.
Yeah.
So what we say in case there is a backlog is that if your birds are positive, we'll notify you by phone within 7 days. We haven't reached you, giving a little leeway. If we haven't reached you by 7 days, then your birds are negative. Yeah.
I was just wondering if the process.
If we go out and we sample birds this afternoon, those samples are labeled, prepared for shipment. We have to double bag them. We have a whole protocol to make sure that nothing gets contaminated. The samples are integrity of the sample is secure, the chain of
have one?
custody and everything. Those then go on a courier out of Ontario Airport. They're in Davis at the lab, 8 o'clock the next morning. They put them on the PCR machine, and generally by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we have the results.
Okay. You got time for one more?
Yeah, one.
Sure.
So can you go back to the GIS photo? I just had a question about it. Your aerial surveillance, the GIS photo you said was satellite. You know what I mean?
The,
GIS photo.
okay.
The the
No,
heat.
no, the photos you had for surveillance. It might have been one slide
Oh.
before that. Keep going. Keep going.
Hold on.
One more further back. Where is it? Maybe.
Those?
Yeah. So maybe the next one. Yeah, you're right. It probably is. It looked like there was an angle off, but that looks like satellite. Yeah, you're right. No, I withdraw my question. I apologize.
No, absolutely fine.
Hurry up, Olivia.
Mine is, I know during Easter time they said they didn't have any keeps and pet stores and that kind of stuff. I didn't check, I don't have chickens of any kind. Are you guys making sure that we don't have enough pet stores and feed stores?
We are trying. We have a whole team of people that are doing nothing but going around to feed stores and pet stores and trying to make sure that we're keeping the poultry out of feed stores, pet stores. So, but if anybody knows of a feed store that's still selling poultry, please call the hotline and we will.
Oh, yeah.
They need big posters
Right.
out front. Most of the feed stores, I am told, I know a lot of people that own them, are Xerox in their own, they ran out. But they're just little, you need something on their front gate. It's warning.
We'll,
Are you charging
Put that
people
down.
for moving their chickens?
You know, we're gonna wrap this up. I don't think your meetings usually last till 9 today.
Yeah, we have to be.
You won't take one more,
Okay.
you won't
We're
take
gonna
one
wrap
more
this up.
question?
We're gonna, please get some of the handouts. There's
Yeah.
No,
probably
not one more
information about
question?